How are we looking? Good? Okay. Um, get back over there. So, first off, hi. I know it's been a minute. Um, it's also actually early for me. Um, I'm not normally up during the day when I'm not working, so this is different for me. Let's see here. So, okay. Brain. Um, you guys saw the title of this video, so you already know what's gonna happen. I've got some notes here. Let me actually flip back to the first page of these notes. Devil May Cry. That's all I have to say. Devil May Cry just released in a new anime at the start of this month. I believe it was on the 3rd of this month. Um, and let's talk about it. This is also like, don't take what I say as gospel. Don't take what I say at face value. These are just going to be my opinions, so it's going to be the opinion of an idiot. But you know, I've been seeing so many comments online about this show that I'm just like, you know what? Don't put that evil on me. Because I genuinely enjoyed the show. Um, but I've been seeing a lot of comments being like, you know, true fans of the series aren't gonna watch this hot garbage. You're better off watching the original 2007 anime. You know what? If I'm being completely honest, I don't even know if I can count myself as like a true fan of Devil May Cry. I am a fan. Don't get me wrong on that. I am 100% a fan of Devil May Cry. Um, I've only played the like the main 5 games. Um, I haven't played the reboot that everyone wants to forget, and I started watching the 2007 anime. Like, I actually started watching that maybe a year ago, roughly. So before this one was even on anyone's radar. Um, and I haven't read any of the manga. I want to. You know, I want to get into the manga series because I had heard of the Visions of V manga series. I was just like, oh sweet, they made books about a game that I like. Awesome, I want to read them. But then I found out that there's actually more than just Visions of V. So yeah, again, a lot of people who are being purists about the series, and you know, there's nothing wrong with that, but there's you know there's got to be a line to being a purist about a franchise that you like. So where I would draw the line is if this was a one-to-one remake of the series, I could understand people getting up in arms about it, but it's not. It was confirmed to be a reimagining, a retelling of the timeline from someone else's uh you know concept. Like, they created a story and they're like, I think I want to use these characters for this story. I think it would go good. And you know, because it's not a one-to-one, that it is a reimagining, I can overlook a lot of stuff and I can forgive a lot of stuff about it. You know, obviously I do have a few things about it that like are cons for me. There's one major thing about it that is a huge con for me that I will agree with um for a lot of the purist fans that are kind of up in arms about it. But to those purists, I also would like to say, you know, think what you want about the show. Don't immediately say all fans would not like this. I'm a fan and I love it, okay? So don't put that evil on me. But I would also say that lost my train of thought. Oh my gosh, the curses of ADHD brain, especially this early in the morning. That's why I'm glad I've got coffee. So looking at my notes, first thing I wrote was overall take on season one has its flaws with the story missing some context. Why they do Lady like that? I'm gonna be coming back to the whole lady thing repeatedly. Okay, she is my main gripe. Just spoiler alert. Also, spoiler alert, I am going to be talking about the entire season. So if you have not seen this show already, what are you doing with your life? Go watch it. It's on Netflix. It's free. Um, but I I don't know. It's like the kind of the kind of purist hate that this show has been getting. You know, the last time I saw people this upset was with the last Airbender live action movie, which everyone agrees we don't talk about that because that was actually trying to be a one-to-one and they completely botched it. It's like they didn't watch anything of the original series of the source material. They weren't faithful whatsoever. But again, this show is not trying to be a one-to-one. So you can't expect everything to fall in line the way you envision it. This is someone else's vision, okay? And it is a standalone thing. Let it stand alone, okay? And let fans who do enjoy it. Don't put words in our mouth, don't speak for us. In fact, within the first week of its release, the Rotten Tomato rating for it was, I think, like 96 or 97% within the first week. You can't argue that number, okay? This show is very popular, and for good reason. Um, but again, I do have some notes on it, and that's just mostly because if I don't follow these talking points that I quickly jotted down, then I'm going to go off on tangents on side tangents on side tangents on side tangents. No one wants that. This video will be forever along. So again, it has its flaws. It's not perfect, but it doesn't have to be. But let's talk about episode 1. That intro scene for White Rabbit in the Vatican City Museum, holy hell, that went so hard and it had no right to. Setting him up as a villain was honestly one of my top favorite setups for a villain arc. I was just like, as soon as he started talking, I was like, okay, voice is really cool, voice is on point. And as soon as I saw the silhouette, I was like, oh, this is the White Rabbit that we were seeing in all the trailers and sneak peeks. And I honestly didn't know anything about the White Rabbit because, again, I haven't read the manga. I didn't know that DMC3 had a prequel manga prior to the game that introduced White Rabbit. So when I first saw him, I was just like, oh, what's this shit? And then I found out, okay, he actually is in the book. He's not just some random thing that they made up. The immediate gore with him just slashing down the 4 Rampart soldiers, it was so like it was so well done because you're just like, oh, he went there. Oh, he went there. He went there too. Okay. And the animation style, I was racking my brain for the longest time. I was just like, I've seen this animation style before. Where have I seen it before? And then I found out that it was by Studio Mir, who did Castlevania, which is another one of my favorite shows. Um, so I'm watching this, I'm just like, okay, this intro went so hard. For just the White Rabbit alone, I'm already hooked. Um, and then they got into the social commentary because, you know, the footage was leaked through the media and through the news. So the social commentary that they had in the first episode, I've heard a lot of gripe about that, of just like, oh, these people are now trying to push their own agenda. If you heard a buzzing just now, I got a YouTube notification from a channel I follow. Um, but I heard a lot of people like, oh, they're using this show to push their political agenda and their political views and blah blah blah, and it's just like, no, actually, you have to remember this show does take place in the early 2000s. Um, and the way that they're reacting in the show, let's be honest, is how they would be reacting in real life. So you would have the political side of it being like, there's no way this wasn't this particular group of people, or like, people are saying that we should step down and let someone else, police the world and stuff like that, even though we have a moral obligation. And it's like, okay, yeah, I can see the political side of things going that route. And then, there was that podcast guy that immediately went the religious route of it. And it's like, okay, yeah, no, I can see that too, because the image that they showed was a very tall creature with a very big sword that had two protrusions, the way they described, that looked like wings. And so immediately the religious side of it is going to think demon. So that was also pretty accurate. But then you've also got like the late night talk shows of it that are not going to take any of it seriously, and that are going to bash everyone and be like, oh, did you hear about this one? Yeah, I heard about that one. I don't think I remember that one coming up in school, but I might have missed that one in my studies. I could have just been, sleeping or jerking off in my dorm room. I don't know. The late night talk shows would go that route. So the political, or not even the political, the social commentary of the public was actually very accurate to how we would handle it in real life. Um, let's see here. And then immediately it cutting to the White House and be like, yeah, it's demons. That was a pretty good, like little comedic gag. It's just like, oh, it's terrorist demons from hell. Cuts to the White House. Yes, terrorist demons from hell. By the way, we're fucked. um, the president, the fact that the voice didn't match the picture was so hilarious to me. And it's this big burly guy in a 10-gallon cowboy hat, and he's talking like all the last guy had to deal with was Saddam Hussein. Like that, the voice didn't match the image, and it was so funny. Even my mom was like, his voice doesn't match. I was like, yeah, I know, it's so funny. um and that's just a little side tangent that I wanted to bring up, and I could go on forever about it. Next point, the setup for Dante was as cool and quirky as he is. That's accurate, because again, as someone who has played the main 5 games, Dante is the most unserious protagonist I have ever seen in any game ever. And he reminds me of abridged Alucard, but not as vulgar. Like, if any of you guys have seen Team 4 Star's Hellsing Ultimate Abridged, one of my favorite parody shows. The way Takahata 101 talked about the way they wrote Alucard was, he dunks on people that take themselves seriously and want him to take them seriously as well. So it's literally the line when, for those of you who've seen the show, when Walter tells him, why won't you take this seriously? Alucard says, because that's what you want and I'm not going to give it to you. That's basically Dante. And I've seen some comments of people being like, oh, they made Dante so unfunny. Bitch, he's been unfunny. The entire time. Ever since the first game came out, he has been chronically unfunny. And that's honestly one of the endearing things about him, is he can make a joke out of almost anything. So him being so badass in his intro and then immediately flubbing how to talk to the girl afterwards was so on brand for him. I also wrote, jackpot, he said the thing. I liked that little nod to his character in the, like, in the games, and I'm assuming he says it in the manga too. But like, that was his little catchphrase. Whenever he had a good hunt, he would say jackpot. So I liked that. Um, Moving on to the opening song. As someone who was born in I was born in 96, um, grew up in the early 2000s. I actually grew up very sheltered with the music that I listened to, so I had never heard of Limp Bizkit. I had never heard of Papa Roach. Um, uh, Whoever the guys were that sing the song Butterfly, come my lady, come my lady. Like I'd never heard of those people before, I had heard them referenced in Game Grumps, which is one of my brother's favorite YouTube channels. Um, but I had never heard of Limp Bizkit before, and the song itself wasn't really my cup of tea. Like it wouldn't have been my first choice for the opening scene, for like the opening sequence for something in the Devil May Cry vein, because Devil May Cry's their why am I blanking on the term? Their music, like their musical scores for the games and stuff, has never been, like it's never been like the poppy rock and roll kind of sound. It's always been like the hardcore heavy metal sound. So that to me was just like, I guess doesn't really fit my idea of it, but that's just my personal opinion. Again, these are the opinions of an idiot. But the animation of it, like, if I were to mute the song and just watch the animation, I would be like, oh yeah, there's Rebellion. Oh, there's Yamato. Oh hey, there's White Rabbit. He's pretty cool. Dante eating the pizza. There's the Wacky Wahoo Pizza Man and the strawberry sundaes. Oh hey, there's Lady. Why is she wearing that suit? Like that would have been my mindset the entire time if I was not, kind of like at the music. But again, that's just me. That's just my personal preference with music. Um, but I also liked the setup for Plasma because he's trying to get the amulet. Okay, why is he after the amulet? Who is this guy? Is he standing alone, or is he working for someone? Like, what's going on here? So the immediate intrigue for Plasma um, was pretty well done in my opinion. And I also like the line that he threw at Dante, the irony that I'm the shapeshifter and you don't know what you are. Like that line went pretty hard, like for me. Um, the fake out with Virgil, I was like, ooh boy. Because in the games, surprise, surprise, Virgil's my favorite. I do love Dante, I love Nero. V was really cool in 5. But Virgil has always been, in my opinion, a cut above the rest. He's been my favorite since day one. Um, so the fake out with him showing up and then it actually turning out to be Plasma, I was like, ooh, that was a good misdirect. And initially, when I found out that Virgil's voice actor had been changed from the original, I was disappointed. I was just like, I don't know if I'm gonna like that. But then I looked up who was going to be voicing him, found out it was Robbie Daymond. I was like, okay, you know what? I can immediately forgive that. I loved Robbie Daymond as Prompto in Final Fantasy 15. That is one of my favorite games. Um, and I had also seen another side tangent. I had seen a little movie, and it's not good. It's quirky, it's campy, and it's a little weird, but it's cute and it's fun, and it's a movie called Strange Magic. And after having played Final Fantasy 15, I went back and I rewatched that movie just, you know, for shits and giggles. The music was actually kind of cute. And then I noticed that there were for anyone who's seen it, the 3 triplet fairies that are following around Roland as his little lackeys. I was like, why do they sound familiar? They kind of sound like Prompto. And I looked it up, and sure enough, it was Robbie Daymond again. I was like, this guy is turning up everywhere for me now. So disappointed that it's not the original voice actor for Virgil, but I can immediately forgive it being Robbie Daymond. I think that he is going to be very good as Virgil. Moving on to episode 2. First talking point I wrote was Lady taking down the demon was a good show of her skill. That is accurate because when we first meet Lady in DMC 3, she comes in guns blazing. And she's able to keep pace with Dante, of all people. And this is before he found out that he has a double trigger. So the entire time he, just like in the show, believed that he was just human with superhuman abilities. Excuse me. But she's able to keep pace with him in the game. So her being able to keep pace with him in the show is not far-fetched. And, you know, in the game, she's called the Walking Arsenal for a reason. Anders is funny. I really liked him because he's like the fast-talking, awkward soldier that he's like, how do I address this person? And, you know, is it okay for me to be talking to them? I enjoyed Anders' character. He was very endearing for me. Oh, and also back in episode 1 that they showed, why am I blanking on her name right now? Lucia from DMC 2. I like that little Easter egg. And then Enzo, I had no idea was a character in the DMC verse until I started hearing about the manga, and I found out that he was Dante's original job broker before Morrison. So when I heard Enzo initially, I was like, Bayonetta? Because, again, I've played Bayonetta. And Enzo is Bayonetta's job broker. But it was like a different kind of Enzo. Same kind of attitude, you know, he's pretty sleazy. But it was the fact that he was immediately willing to cooperate. They didn't do anything to him. And he's like, before we start, you should know I'll tell you anything you want about any subject. I was like, okay, this guy's ridiculous, and I'm here for it. So I saw Enzo in the first episode. I was like, he's a chatterbox. He's not afraid to give up information, but he is very fond of Dante. So I think I might like him. Sure enough, I did. I absolutely loved Enzo. I also wrote down Baines is annoying. R.I.P. Kevin. Kevin Conroy. R.I.P. to the GOAT. Admittedly, I did not know him by name, but for anyone who doesn't know, and I'm pretty sure my best friend's gonna watch this, he was not the original voice actor, but the one that came after for Batman in the animated series and the video games, specifically like the Arkham Saga for the video games. He did a lot of work with Mark Hamill's Joker. And I saw some trivia about him that the original voice actor started in 1968 and went up to the 80s. And then Kevin Conroy took over either in the 80s or 90s and went up to 2015. So he was the second person to hold the Batman title for as long as he did. And then he was also the second person to use two distinct voices to differentiate between Batman and Bruce Wayne. So I thought that was pretty fun. And then I also found out a fun fact about Mark Hamill saying that he would not voice Joker if Kevin Conroy was not voicing Batman. So now that Kevin Conroy has unfortunately passed, looks like Mark Hamill might not be playing Joker anymore. Just sad little fact about that. But yeah, Baines, as soon as he started his his religious nonsense about what they were terming as demons, only for us to find out literally during the White House briefing that they're not demons as theology teaches us, but they're actually a separate branch of humanity that took a different evolutionary route. I like that concept, by the way. As soon as he was just like, basically, what was it that one character in Fallout New Vegas said? I forget the character's name, but he's like, um, we can't expect God to do all the work. The time for talk is past. The Lord's work must be done. Anyone who's played the game, remind me the character's name because I'm blanking on it. Um, Baines reminded me of that guy crossed with Sanctus from DMC4. He's just like, as soon as he started very heavy handedly leaning into that stuff, I was like, I don't think I'm gonna like this guy. And it's not from like a religious standpoint. I was raised Catholic. I'm now agnostic, bordering on atheist. Um, Most of the family that I grew up with are now Christian, so it's like I and I've got friends of different walks of life and different religious leanings. The religious aspect of it is not the issue for me. The issue is how hard he goes into it, because unfortunately you do see people like that in today's world of just like thinking they can get away with things because they're Christian, or they can get away with things because they're Muslim, or they can get away with things because they're Jewish, like whatever. Like it's like no, you can't. So Baines immediately leaning into that so heavy-handedly was the immediate click for me of like, oh, I'm not gonna like this guy. I don't think I'm gonna like this guy. I don't think I'm gonna like what he's about. Um, and then with Lady, the way they wrote her character, and I will die on this hill if they don't fix this.